And Preet Bharara, the former United States Attorney for the Southern District of New York, joins me now. It's good to have you here.
Good to be here.
A real interesting study in contrasts over the last few weeks.
Indeed.
What strikes you about the reaction today?
So when you think about the Biden family and how Joe Biden in particular thinks about his job, but not just his job, about his family, upon the conviction or before the conviction, upon the investigation and arrest and indictment of his son, given what his family has been through, you would think that every fatherly instinct would have been to protect him. If you're a father, I know you are, you love your children more than you love yourself. You try to protect them from harm. You try to protect them from bad consequences. And the Biden family has suffered a lot of bad things as a family. And yet there's some things that are more important than that when you are the commander in chief and you're basically the president of the country. And one of those things is that no one is above the law and the rule of law matters. And here is an occasion, as you've been pointing out in the intro, where Joe Biden had absolute authority, literal authority. He had no authority over Alvin Bragg. He didn't direct the prosecution of Donald Trump. It's his Justice Department. He had authority to direct people not to prosecute his son. He could have fired the special counsel. He could have directed that the special counsel not be appointed in the first place. He could have pardoned his son preemptively. He could still pardon him. He said he won't do that. All of that conduct, given that it's his son, is kind of, we should pause for a moment and think about how unbelievable that is. In a million years, if the shoe were on the other foot and Donald Trump was facing the prospect of his son being prosecuted by a Biden, me, if I had been held over, a Biden holdover or Obama holdover prosecutor, not in a million years would that have happened. So, some of the people on the right, the people who support Donald Trump, are trying to cast this as some clever ops program by which this actually proves that he's trying to get this off. It's amazing to me.
It's a non-falsifiable. I will say it's outlandish to imagine Don Jr. getting into trouble with guns and drugs. But the Stephen Miller said this: the gun charges are a giant misdirection, an easy op for DOJ to sell to a pliant media that is all too willing to be duped. Don't be gaslit. This is all about protecting Joe Biden, only Joe Biden. So, no matter what happens, right, the corrupt rig system is just deeper than you realize.
Yeah, I replied to that. If every possible outcome, if every possible permutation is arguably a point in your favor, then maybe your position is terrible. And I use a different word than terrible.
I don't even think he was required, even by probity, to keep David Weiss on in Delaware.
No.
I honestly, that is, when I say bend over backwards, that is bending over backwards. It would have been perfectly reasonable.
Bend over backwards, above and beyond.
To replace him. And obviously, it wouldn't be reasonable to say, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, drop the Hunter case. But if you say, hey, do your thing. But he didn't have to do it.
He didn't. And by the way, some other features of this are also important to point out. And you mentioned some of them in the intro. This jury verdict came out. They didn't dox the jury. They didn't attack the judge. He didn't say this is a travesty of justice, this is a witch hunt. He said what people say, what I used to say when I was U.S. attorney for 7.5 years. And from time to time, even though we thought we brought a righteous and meritorious case.
You win some, you lose some.
Yeah, and you say we respect the verdict of the jury. Completely opposite to what Donald Trump did.
It was striking to me, you just mentioned this, one of the most striking things is after that Trump verdict, and I remember Judge Kaplan in that federal civil trial with E. Jean Carroll told the jurors, look, you can talk to the press if you want. I'd advise you not to.
And they didn't.
And they didn't. In Alvin Bragg's case, they did not talk to the press. And I think we all know the reason. They would expose themselves to harassment and possibly threats and possibly violence. Here today, you had the jurors talking to the press, which, again, great. I'm a reporter. I like it. But what a contrast.
No, it's a very stark contrast. And I think it goes to just show that when Joe Biden and his supporters talk about rule of law and nobody being above the law, they mean it. And you can disagree with Joe Biden's policies, and you can talk about the border and all these other things that are not in my bailiwick about politics. But on the question of whether or not the rule of law is to be enforced and there's no fear or favor to be given to anyone, including the son of a sitting president of the United States, the Republicans are full of it on the Trump side, and Biden is not.
He's walked the walk. Final question for you is about independence in the Department of Justice. I mean, we have a post-Nixon order, right? I mean, one of the things about Nixon, right, and the reckoning with Nixon, both at a sort of level of regulation, norms, and statutes, was The Department of Justice can't just be a tool in the hands of the executive to pursue vendetta, to prosecute and punish enemies, to protect friends.
Yeah.
The Trump vision is exactly that, and in fact, explicitly that. I mean, if you read the Russ Vogt profile, I mean, they really think we're going to come in and it's going to be like day one, go open an investigation of that person, prosecute that person.
Yeah. That which they have accused everyone else of doing, they are explicitly saying they're going to want to do. There's great irony. You know, with respect to one of the cases pending against Donald Trump, the Mar-a-Lago documents case in federal court in Florida, Donald Trump's team has made a number of motions to dismiss the indictment. One of those is vindictive prosecution, right? There's no evidence of that. There's no evidence that Joe Biden or anyone else directed that investigation and that prosecution and that indictment. But by saying the things that they're saying now that you're pointing out, Donald Trump is actually, ironically, laying the foundation for a vindictive prosecution motion to dismiss on the part of all the current people
that is such a good
who
point.
Donald Trump is going to be going after, because he's announcing his plans before election. All of those statements and those plans, Project 2025 and everything else, are going to be chapter and verse in the briefs asking for the dismissal of those indictments.
That's a great point. Preet Bharara, great to have you here. Come
Thanks
back anytime.
Yeah.